I'm Cynan Jones. I'm delighted to have landed again on the Wales Book of the Year shortlist. I've been the other side of the panel too, judging that competition. I know that it's a really tough thing to judge, but a really, really rewarding process. So Stillicide began life as a set of radio stories commissioned by Radio 4. I think when they approached me with an idea for a commission, they expected me to return an idea about West Wales, sort of community-based, rural-based, much like a lot of the books that I've written in the past. But I'd always had this idea of a sort of slightly futuristic piece based around the commodification of water that would generate a narrative through lots of small stories gathering together, pooling together, if you liked. I can give you some idea of one of the stories by reading from it, and it's a fairly nerve-wracking thing to do when you've seen the professionals do that. Lydia Wilson read this story, Lake, brilliantly, and she played Cora, who is an engineer, a thermodynamic engineer on the water train. Stillicide's sort of held together by this idea of this great train because there isn't enough water. Although enough of it falls out of the sky, the management and the overpopulation means that there isn't enough water to go around often, particularly for the city. So the city is watered by these huge water trains that come in from reservoirs in the north, and she works at one of those reservoirs. She left the block of ice in the cloth on the kitchen table and put on a summer dress. Then she put on her walking boots. She felt like her 6-year-old self going outside in the sun in wellies. As she stepped out, the air suddenly seemed emptied. The sharp calls of the songbirds quiet. Moments later, the sheep began to wheel on the hill. A bumblebee circled with an incongruous drone. Then the faintest sing came to the wire stays of the ecomopods, and the valley filled with the sound of the train starting up. By the time Cora reached the foot of the hill, the sound was no more than a lessening hush, fading towards the city, hundreds of miles away. Cora's dress stuck a little to her skin. Delicate yellow day-flying moths flew amongst the gorse. There was a heady coconut smell to the flowers. She picked them and dropped them into the bowl, patient when she pinned her finger. Sometimes felt showered seeds on her skin, took a while to link the tickle to the spiky, sporadic pops, punctuations in the air as the flat, mature pea pods on the bushes burst in the sun. She gently pinched the part-closed petals together and pulled, took soft buds, the faint hairs between her fingers like stroking a small animal's ear. Below her in the bowl of the valley, the foil of the ecomopods gleamed like mica. The tech buildings looked no bigger than the squat, low boxes of the bumblebee hives she'd passed on her way up the hill. Every now and again, there was a quiet bump of rabbits. She was at the same time a long way away and very here, deeply thoughtful but content. Her mind went easily from one thing to another, rested sometimes, waited, flitted. She thought of Leo. She thought of lunch. She thought of raw, grated carrot fresh from the nearby farm, the difference the new farm being here had made, as had the chickens the crew had taken to decide on, managing the care by rota and sharing out the eggs, the veg patch they had not quite got to grips with yet. Thought of how dry the grass was and how she should have put on sun lotion. And then they were suddenly there. She jumped. Hard and jolting, a horrible zip through her system. The 2 guards stood above her, stepped from the thorn. Cora felt sick. She had jumped hard enough to spill gorse around her feet. She followed the gaze of one of the guards, who looked at the flowers on the ground. When she looked back, he held her eye. "Farm?" he said. "No, I'm with the train. I'm off shift," she felt the need to say. She wished she had her pass, as if it could protect her, as if it could ward them off. "What are you doing up here?" asked the guard. "I'm making ice cream," said Cora. It made no sense. The guard stared at the bowl of flowers in her hand. The flowers dropped around her feet, her walking boots, her legs. "What do you do with the train?" "Thermo." The thinner guard reviewed her with strange, unbatting eyes. "I've seen you. I've noticed you," he said. And it felt as if his eyes rolled into the bowl of her mouth. Cora felt an animal certainty that there were more men than there really were. Her dress clung to her sweat. She felt it outline her, present her. "You should not be up here," said the first guard. The locus of her fear changed to a fear they were going to mete out punishment. "There are people up here," the guard continued. "They have intent. It's why we're here. You can't be up here." Cora felt the eyes of the thinner guard in the soft shallow of her neck. "Have you not read the directives?" "Best go back," said the first guard. Cora could not stop the shake. It set the gorse buds rattling in the bowl. "We'll pretend this didn't happen."